Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I am back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's No Filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, if I don't sweat as much when I lift weights as I do when I do cardio, does this mean I'm not working hard enough and not burning much calories? No. So this is very important. This is actually a good question. More sweat does not equate to more fat loss, and more sweat does not equate to more calories being burned. Sweat is really just water leaving your body. So you're just losing water weight. You drink water, you lose water, right? That's the body's natural way to get rid of water is by sweating it out or peeing it out. Okay. So you're not necessarily training harder because you're sweating more. Okay, this is important. And the thing with sweat is it really comes down to genetics. Some people just naturally sweat more than others. Some people have more sweat glands than others. And a lot of people think, well, you take two people and one's really fit and one's really unhealthy and sedentary. The person who's unhealthy and sedentary is going to sweat more. Not necessarily. Okay. There's a lot of people who are fit, active, and healthy that sweat buckets. Trust me, I've got lots on my roster. Okay. And that just comes down to their genetics. So again, more sweat doesn't equate to more fat loss. More sweat does not equate to more calories being burned. As long as you yourself are training with the utmost amount of intensity, you're training intelligently, you're approaching each workout methodically, you are going to get results with your physique. And whether your goal is to build fat, lose muscle, or a combination of the two, or just improve your overall health, fitness, and well-being, you will get those results. So don't worry that you're not sweating as much as your neighbor or your training partner or the person down the gym that you see doing a set, doing a squat or doing a bench press, and they're sweating a bunch, and you're looking at yourself saying, I'm not sweating very much. Unless you yourself know that you're not training with the utmost amount of intensity, as in if you're doing a set and then cruising on Instagram or playing on TikTok for 5, 10 minutes, well, then yeah, you're not going to get results. Okay. So you should break somewhat of a sweat, but if you're not sweating buckets, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are not training intensely. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get the same results as someone who is sweating profusely in the gym. Okay. So one more time, more sweat does not equate to more fat loss, and more sweat does not equate to more calories being burned. Because if it did, just go in a sauna and lift some weights. You're going to sweat crazy, right? But you're just losing water weight. I don't recommend doing that either because that's very dangerous. Because if you're sweating that much with weights, there's a risk of dehydration. And who knows what could happen? You could tear a muscle, you could cramp up, you could even pass out. So don't lift weights in the sauna. I know there's some people out there that do that, but I would advise you not to do that. All right. Next question. Nick, do you recommend tracking your workouts? Like, how do you know when to increase weight or change up the exercise on a client? Yeah, so this is another good question. If you yourself have a problem or trouble remembering the weights that you're lifting or the workouts that you're doing, it's probably a good idea to keep a journal on hand. Yeah, and you can keep that on your phone, or a lot of people like to write in a journal. But for myself, I've never done that. I have a fairly good memory when it comes to my own workouts, as well as my clients who work with me in-house, their workouts. And how I make that decision on whether or not to change an exercise or increase the weight, it'll depend on multiple factors. If I'm working with someone and they're coming in and they're saying, Nick, today, my shoulder's really hurting me, and we have a shoulder workout scheduled, right? I might not give them shoulder presses. I might give them a different shoulder routine. I might take out shoulder presses for 1 or 2 weeks until that shoulder heals. Still throw in lateral raises, still throw in rear delt raises, maybe still throw in some upright rows, but stay away from any work on the anterior deltoid. And then I'll make sure that I just program accordingly based on how that person is feeling. So it's not always an injury. Sometimes it's just that they're too sore, right? Or they're having a mobility issue. I know, so I have some clients that go in for IMS, and then once they come out of IMS, the next day they're really sore on certain muscles. So we have to train around that. So I make changes to the exercise selection when someone's dealing with an injury, a physical limitation, or if they're no longer progressing with the workout routine I'm giving them. Okay. And that's important too, because if I'm working with someone and let's say I've been giving them the same leg workout for the last 3 months, but they're not really noticing any changes in their legs, I'm like, you know what? instead of change up everything, we're going to take out two exercises and we're going to add in these two exercises. So we're going to make the necessary revisions along the way. Okay. So that's another good way to know when it's time to change up certain exercises is when you're not responding. So either you're dealing with an injury, a physical limitation, whether it be a mobility issue or a flexibility issue, or you're not seeing changes. That's when it's a good idea to change up certain exercises, not all the exercises, but certain exercises in your workout routine. As far as weight's concerned, I usually use the rule of thumb that if you're hitting 12 to 15 reps with these, it's time to bump up the weight. Okay. Now, obviously, your first set of every exercise, you should be getting 12 to 15 reps because, as I mentioned in the past, it's important to warm up on every single exercise. Even if you're 40 minutes into the gym now, into your workout, you still want to make sure if it's a new exercise that you're warming up properly and that you can get that 12 to 15 rep range. So I would say you're training at about 70% of what you could normally lift in that 10 to 12 rep range, right? So when it comes to increasing weight, I'll look at how that person is feeling and responding to the weights on that particular day. Sometimes I have someone come in and everything's on point. Their form is great, their technique is excellent, and they're pushing heavy weights. I'm like, you know what? We're gonna get a new PR today, new personal record, and they do it. Other times they come in, they're not feeling that great, and we actually have to go a little bit lighter. So you have to make that decision on whether or not it's time to increase the weight on a certain exercise based on how you're feeling on that particular day, because it changes. The human body changes. And I know there's all these trainers out there who are, I call them scientists, right? These gym scientists who say, oh, we're on week 6, so it's now to do progressive overload and we're going to hit our 1 rep max and all this. Listen, the body doesn't work like that. Just because it's your schedule to hit a 1 rep max on Tuesday doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? You have to listen to your body, really listen to your body. And I swear this is how I've avoided any injuries for 20 plus years is I always listen to my body. If my body is telling me, hey, Nick, I need you to back off the weights today. We need to keep things light because, I'm dealing with remember, a shoulder issue, or it could be an issue with my hamstring, whatever it is, a slight pec tear. You have to listen to your body. Okay. And that's the best way to avoid injury. So if you want to increase the weights, don't make a scheduled date for that. Just go by how you feel. And this is where it does help to have a trainer or at least a training partner or a second set of eyes that can say, you know what, I think you can go heavier today. Or even though you think you can go heavier today, your form wasn't very good on that last set. So let's either lighten the load or keep the weight the same. Okay. But I've never recorded people's weights. I've never recorded my own weights, my own workouts. But if you yourself have a hard time remembering what you did in the gym, probably a good idea to keep a journal on hand. All right. Okay. Nick, could you please tell me what to eat for my pre-workout meal and what should I put in my post-workout shake? Okay, so for pre-workout meals, it's pretty simple. I do recommend people stick to complex carbohydrate sources. So something like yams, sweet potatoes, brown rice, cream of rice, oats, and lean protein sources. So something like chicken breast, cod, egg whites, protein powder. Okay. The reason I recommend sticking to complex carbs and lean proteins without the fats is because fats take the body longer to digest. Okay. So the last thing you want during a workout is to be digesting your food, right? So save your fats for post workout or put them in a few hours before you train. If you're someone who trains at like say 2 or 3 in the afternoon, don't put them in right before you work out because you're going to notice it takes a little while for your body to digest those fats. And as I said, you don't want to be on the floor training with weights and having an upset stomach. It's not a good feeling. You're going to feel very lethargic. You might even feel nauseous. Okay. So not a good idea. Now, as far as your post-workout shakes, I can't really recommend what to put in a post-workout shake because I don't do post-workout shakes, nor do I put post-workout shakes on my clients' nutritional plans. Now, there will be the odd time that I might give someone a protein shake. It doesn't necessarily have to be after their workout, but it just might be for that extra meal because it's convenient just to have a shake as opposed to a whole meal. But for post-workout, I do recommend consuming a whole meal food source. So something, as I said, it can be a lean protein such as a chicken breast with some brown rice, and then adding in your healthy fats because it's post-workout. So that could be a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. It could be macadamia nut oil. It could be peanut butter. It could be some eggs. It could be avocado, a healthy fat source. Okay. And that should be sufficient. Okay. So the whole thing with post-workout shakes, I've talked about this in the past. I believe them to be a gimmick that was made up by the supplement companies to sell their protein shakes. And it's not necessarily. Like I said, I do like using protein powder, but what I usually do is I just throw it in my morning oats. And that's it. So that's how I get my protein in. It's easy. I don't have to cook a bunch of egg whites. I just throw in a protein powder into my oatmeal. And now I've had my lean protein and my complex carbohydrate. So I can't tell you what to put in a post-workout shake because I don't believe in them. I'd strongly advise you to have a meal post-workout. And if you do want to have a shake, just make sure that that shake you're using is contains a whey isolate protein source, or at least a whey concentrate. A good quality whey concentrate will be suffice as well. Okay. But I'm old school when it comes to the shakes. And if you're really going to consume a shake, my recommendation, just throw some water in there and down it. Don't add milk. Don't add all these nut butters and all these like MCT oils and all this other stuff because all you're doing is adding additional calories that you don't need. Okay. Okay. Nick, what's one fitness myth you used to believe but later discovered was untrue? Um, ah, you got to eat big to get big. This one was one that took me a while to learn. And you know what? Here's the thing is you don't need to eat big to get big. And you just need to eat smart to get big. Because if you eat big to get big, you'll get big, but you're going to get big around the waist. You're going to add on belly fat. You're going to add on additional fat throughout your body that you don't want. Okay. And where this came from, where well, back when I was coming up, was the bodybuilding magazines and the ghostwriters that would write for the bodybuilders say, no, you got to eat, 10,000 calories a day to get big. Well, the problem with that is that they didn't take into consideration that these bodybuilders were also using large dosages of anabolic steroids, growth hormone, clenbuterol, cytomel. These are fat burners that will help aid in losing not just fat, but burning calories. So if you're someone who's following a diet plan that a professional bodybuilder is following, who A has superior genetics, naturally has a fast metabolism, and then you add in the anabolic steroid usage to speed up that metabolism even more. If you're not doing that and you don't have a fast metabolism and you're not a genetic freak, guess what? You're going to get fat. So the whole ideology of get big, you got to eat big, it's all BS. And so even to this day, I cannot believe that I still see these being sold in supplement stores, but those mass gainers, and to me, those mass gainers are such a waste of money and they're so not good for you. They're full of sugar, they're full of carbs, not just complex carbs, but simple carbs. They're full of saturated fats. Some even have trans fats. And this is something that's supposed to be healthy for you. And as I've mentioned on the channel time and time again, our body does need some saturated fats, but not to the extent that some of these powders are offering. Okay. And these powders should never have trans fats. I have no idea where they're getting the trans fats from, but people still buy them because people still believe, oh, you got to eat big to get big. And that to me is just BS. Anyone who works with me on a mass gaining plan will tell you that I always aim for that half a pound to 1 pound max of weight gain per week, because that will tell me that the majority, not all, but the majority of that 1 pound that we're putting on is muscle. And yeah, there might be 10, 20% of that that's going to be water and fat, but the majority will be muscle. And that's so important because anyone, like I said in the past, anyone can lose weight and anyone can gain weight. Gaining weight is not difficult. You want to gain weight? I'll put you on a plan. You'll gain 2, 3 pounds a week, but you're not going to like the weight that you gain. Because if you're eating things like Ben and Jerry's, McDonald's, A&W, Pizza Hut, you'll gain weight. You'll gain lots of weight, but it's not going to be quality weight. Okay. So you want to make sure the weight that you're adding on is quality weight. And therefore, you want to make sure you're eating clean food sources. And I'll tell you, from someone who's done it, you don't need to eat a crazy amount of food. As long as you're eating your lean proteins, your complex carbs, your healthy fats, and you're watching your body and say, okay, I need a little bit, eat a little bit more now because I'm not gaining weight, but I don't want to eat too much because I don't want to gain too much weight too quickly. Okay. So it works both ways. If you're trying to lose weight, you want to lose the weight slowly. So you keep it off. If you're trying to gain weight, you want to gain the weight slowly so that you keep it on. Okay. If you do it too quick, I promise you, if you do it too quick, if you lose the weight too quick, you're going to put it all back on. If you gain it too quick, whether it's because you've been eating so much food, adding in anabolic steroids usage, whatever it is, you're going to lose it. Okay. So slow works best. Okay. You have to be patient. And I know that's hard for a lot of people, especially in this day and age with all the instant gratification we see on social media and online. But I promise you, this is the way to do it. Because if you're thinking long term and so, you know what, I might not get to the results I want today. I'm not going to get them next week. I'm not going to get them next month. I might not even get them next year. But as long as I'm consistent day in, day out, I'll get there. I just have to be patient and listen to your body, as I mentioned in one of the other questions, and watch your body. See how your body is responding to the new plan on a weekly basis. Take photos, take measurements, weigh yourself on a scale, and that way you'll know whether you're progressing with your physique or not. Okay. Nick, what is more important for achieving fitness goals, consistency or intensity? I train intensely when I'm in the gym, but the trouble I have is staying consistent with my workouts. Will my body still get results as long as I'm training hard when I do go to the gym? Yeah, so most people know who follow me on the YouTube channel or on my Instagram or work with me in-house or online. I'm a firm believer in consistency. And I think consistency triumphs over intensity all day, every day. Okay. And I'll tell you why. If you're going to the gym and you're going sporadically, they say you're going like twice a week, then you're going 3 times a week, and then you go for 3 weeks, or you go for 2 weeks straight and then you take off 2 weeks. Okay, so you're sporadic with your training, but every time you go to the gym, you train super intense. You're going all out, balls to wall. You risk injuring yourself because your body is going through shock every time you go in the gym. It doesn't know what to expect and not in a good way. Okay. So consistency pays off. So even if you're not training with 100% intensity and taking every set to failure, which, as I've mentioned in the past, I don't recommend people do, you're going to get results because you're being consistent with your training. And I always compare training to growing a business. If you're someone who's trying to grow a business, you have to be consistent with it day in, day out. You have to be patient, but you have to also put in the time, effort, and energy. You can't just do it sporadically. Okay. So if you're trying to build a successful business, you can't just say, well, today I'm going to work on my business for 20 hours and then I'm not going to work on it for a week. I mean, you might progress a little bit with that, but the long term, you're not going to really progress at all because you're not building something on a consistent basis. It's going to take you longer to achieve those goals. When it comes to weightlifting, as I mentioned, if you're just doing it sporadically and you don't have a game plan, you do risk injury because if you're going in just, like I said, once a week or twice a week, or you're going in for 2 weeks straight and take 2 weeks off, you're putting your body through unnecessary shock. And what could happen is trauma could occur. You could tear a muscle, you could strain a muscle, strain a ligament, whatever it is, and now you're out for months on end. So I wouldn't recommend training the way you're doing. Rather, what I'd recommend is going to the gym and try to train as consistently as you can, week in, week out. Take your intensity level down a little bit. You don't have to train with 100% intensity in the gym. And I talked about that a few weeks ago. I put out a video on my Instagram. Okay, so you haven't checked out that video, I would go to my Instagram, fit_underscore, and check it out because I talked about why I don't recommend training to failure and why I don't recommend going 100% in the gym. Okay. You want to avoid injury and you want to avoid burnout. And most importantly, you want to last. Because if you can't last, you're not going to receive long-term results. Okay. So consistency always triumphs over intensity, always. Okay. So my recommendation to you would be to take the intensity down a little bit, get into the gym on a more consistent basis. And that way, not only will you achieve results, but you'll able to maintain those results and hopefully, knock on wood, not get injured at the same time. Okay. But in my opinion, consistency is always the best way to go. All right. Nick, how do you mentally push through a workout when you want to quit? There are times when I go to the gym, I just don't want to be there and feel like leaving as soon as I arrive. I think this is a different, you get a different answer from different people, but what works for me, especially on the days I don't want to train, because I'll tell you, there's a lot of workouts I go to that I just don't want to do it. But what I try to do is I just try to take it one set at a time. So I don't think if I have a leg workout, I don't think, oh, God, I've got 6 sets of squats and a triple set of squat, drop set squat at the end. Then I got to do 8 sets of lunges and I got to do my straight leg hamstrings. And I don't think like that. I think, okay, this is my leg workout. I'm going to go in right now. It's like I negotiate with myself and say, you know what? I'm going to try to take this set of squats. I'm going to try to do 2 sets of squats, 3 sets of squats, 4, and so on. There have been times in the past where after 1 or 2 sets of doing an exercise, I'm like, my body's not feeling it today. I'm going to call it. So I listen to my body. But if I know I'm just being, sorry, but a little bitch, and I'm being just like, I don't want to do it because I'm feeling lazy and I'm feeling sorry for myself, I push through it, just taking it one set at a time, one exercise at a time. And like I said, I negotiate with myself. I say, you know what? Even though, I don't feel like I can do a whole leg workout today, if I can just get half of this leg workout in, I'll be happy. And I promise you this has never happened because I usually finish every single workout I do. I've never cut a workout short. But I negotiate with myself and allow myself that opportunity to go, you know what, I'm here now. Let me just try to get the first few sets in and see how that goes. Oh, that went well. Let me add in a second exercise. Let's see how this goes. You know what? I'm actually feeling a little bit better now. Let me add a third. And that does happen with a lot of people I work with. There's people that will come in the gym with me and like, today we might have to call the workout early or we might have to do some active release stretching because I don't know. I'm just not feeling it today. I'm like, all right, well, let's just take it one set at a time. And one set turns into two sets turns into five sets, two exercises turns into six exercises, and so on. And then by the time 45 minutes to an hour passes, we're done. So what I'm trying to say here is don't look at how high the mountain is to climb. Just look at the little steps first, right? The little steps you have to take to get up that mountain. And you might not get up that mountain that day, but even if you got 3 steps forward, that's 3 steps closer than you were the day before. So don't overthink it. Don't overwhelm yourself with how much you have to do. Just take it one rep at a time, one set at a time, one exercise at a time. That's my recommendation. All right. Nick, how do you structure a training split routine? For example, do you recommend doing full body, push pull, legs, or something else? I'm just trying to put together a training routine that will allow me to go to the gym 4 days a week. Thank you. Again, yeah, this will depend on what your goals are. Okay, so I'm a firm believer in using a bodybuilding split routine, which is working one muscle group a week. So based on your training schedule, where you said 4 days a week, my recommendation would be to put together a plan that would say chest and back on day one. You can do biceps and triceps day two. You can do shoulders and abs day three. And then you could do quads, hamstrings, and glutes day four. Right. And that way you're working your whole body, but every muscle group just gets hit once a week, one day a week. And I'm a huge advocate of bodybuilding splits. What you're talking about, like push pull days, lower body days, where people do multiple lower body days, in my experience, people who follow those type of training splits usually get injured. They're overtraining the muscles. Okay. So the muscles, we know muscles usually take about 72 hours to recover. But if you train a muscle group, let's say your chest, for example, with high volume, as in, that 30 to 40 sets, where a lot of people will wave their fingers and sound the alarms and say, that's overtraining. And I always say, it's not overtraining if you've conditioned your body to do this for not just a few months, but a few years. And if you're allowing your body to rest for an entire week after doing that. So if I train my chest on Monday and I do 42 sets, I'm not going to do my chest again until the following Monday. So I'm giving my body a good 6, 7 days of rest. I'm not hitting that muscle group at all. And I truly believe that's a great way to achieve results as a natural lifter and avoid injury. Okay. So these people who are squatting 3 or 4 times a week, these are the people that long term usually do get injured. And I've seen it. I've seen people with CrossFit, they get injured. And I truly believe it's because they're overtraining the muscles. They're using the same planes of motion over and over again, which is putting a lot of strain on the joints, ligaments, and tendons. Okay. So your muscles are getting some benefits, of course, but when you're training them that often on those planes of motion with the same exercises over and over again, something's going to give, and it's usually an injury. And that's when you see either something break or a strain or a tear. So that's why I advise people to follow bodybuilding splits. They work. Okay. So my recommendation in your case, as I said, for a 4 day training split, it doesn't have to be exactly like this, but what I typically do with someone who's working with me in the gym, when I'm putting them on a 4 day split, whether it's in-house or online, I'll give them day one, chest and back, day two, bis and tris, day three, shoulders and abs, and then day four, quads, hamstrings, and glutes. And you can put that in any order you like, but that's my recommendation, combining those muscle groups together on a 4 day training split. Obviously, that can change if you're someone who's following a 3 day split or 5 day split or 6 day split. But as long as you train each muscle group once a week, high volume, high intensity, and then rest it, you will get results and you'll avoid injury. All right. Few more questions here. Okay. Nick, what's your thoughts on training to failure? Do you recommend training to failure every set or avoid it altogether? I think I just talked about this earlier on one of the other questions, but I do not recommend training to failure. And as I mentioned, yes, I did talk about this earlier. I posted a video about this exact topic a few weeks ago on my Instagram. And I think what's happening now is I'm getting a lot of questions from people, both online and in-house, about training to failure and the benefits. And here's the thing, when you train to failure, you put so much stress on not just your muscles, but you're putting a lot of stress on your central nervous system. And if you put stress on your central nervous system, what happens? Your cortisol levels rise. And if your cortisol levels rise, what happens? Well, then your body's ability to put on muscle, your body's ability to lose fat becomes worse, right? It becomes compromised. And that becomes a problem. So, in my experience, the best way to put on muscle and the best way to lose fat is when your body is in a state of relaxation. And the best way to do that is to not train to failure. Okay. I know a lot of people think, you have to go balls to wall, no pain, no gain. But again, I can tell you from 20 years of doing this job now, the people who do that, they burn out super quickly. They don't last. They don't. And I've seen it time and time again. And whether it's due to an injury or whether it's just due to mental burnout, because let's face it, you can't put your foot on the gas and keep it there at 100 for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It doesn't work like that. You have to back off and you have to know when to back off. And this comes down to that first question when I said you have to listen to your body and you can't just say, well, today's week 6, so I'm supposed to be going for a new PR in a squat rack. No, you have to listen to your body. If your body's telling you to back off, you need to back off. If your body's saying, hey, you know what? I feel good. Let's do this. Do it. Okay. And if you're unsure, this is where it does come down to working with someone who is experienced and knowledgeable and can help you because a trained set of eyes in the gym makes a huge difference. Because there are times where I'll work with clients in the gym. I'll say, you know what? I know you've done this weight before, but I'm just not feeling it on you today. I can see that your form, your technique is off. Maybe you didn't sleep enough. You could be dealing with a nagging injury, a physical limitation, whatever it is. We're going to take the weight down or we're going to make a modification. We're going to make a revision in the workout. We're going to change the exercise. Okay. Because that experience that I have from helping people and troubleshooting when I've seen this before, it translates into helping the next person with their workout. So this is where sometimes if you're unsure of what you should be doing, you might want to hire an experienced coach that can guide you along the way. Okay. Because I know the ideology of train to failure. I think I'm going to get the best results. No. There was a famous bodybuilder, Dorian Yates, 6-time Mr. Olympia, who was a great Mr. Olympia. I mean, he had a fantastic physique. He was Mr. Olympia during the 1990s, 6 times. He was a firm believer in training to failure. But Dorian Yates also had to end his career early due to injuries. And it's because of the way he trained. So there's something to be said about that. Like, if you want to last long term, you want to train with the utmost amount of intensity, as in going to 100%, or do you want to train with the utmost amount of intensity, but keep that intensity at about 75 to 80%? Because that's still intense, right? And you're keeping that tension on the muscles and you're not stressing out your central nervous system. You're not putting unnecessary strain on your ligaments and your joints and your tendons. Okay. So that's my recommendation. Do not train to failure. Train intelligently. Again, approach each workout methodically and listen to your body when your body is telling you to back off the weights, as in do not increase the weights today. In fact, decrease the weights. Listen to your body. It's not going to take anything away from your physique, I promise you. Okay. If anything, it's probably going to enhance your physique because as I've talked about this before, it doesn't matter how much weight you're lifting. If your body is struggling to push that weight and it's a challenge to push that weight, it's going to respond. So regardless if you're squatting 315 or squatting 135, if it's a challenge for you, you're going to respond. Your muscles don't have eyes. They don't know how much weight you're lifting. So as long as you stay within that 10 to 15 rep range, include lots of drop sets, circuit training, supersets, giant sets, all this stuff, rest pause sets, all this stuff helps, but you don't have to go to failure on each and every set. And I don't even recommend going to failure on any set. I never have. And I truly believe this is the best way to get results, again, without being injured. And I've talked about this a few times on today's episode. You do not want to get injured. If you're injured, you can't train. If you can't train, there goes your results. All right. Okay. Last question. Nick, how do you handle lagging muscle groups? Do you incorporate extra work or recovery strategies to help these areas respond better? No. So here's the thing with lagging muscle groups. This comes down to genetics again. And you can see this especially on bodybuilding stages. Like you take 5 guys or 5 women, and they all train intensely. They all eat perfectly. They've got their diet dialed in. They're supplementing properly. The supplement protocols are on point. And you'll see, though, that all 5 guys look somewhat different. Some guys have better quads. Some guys have better backs. Some guys have better arms. Some guys have better waists, right? Same thing with the women. You see some women have better butts. So it comes down to if all 5 are doing the exact same thing in the gym and in the kitchen and their supplement protocol, what changes? Well, it's their genetics. Some people are genetically predisposed to have great quads, great glutes, great hamstrings, but maybe not the strongest upper body. And vice versa. Some guys and women out there have great backs, great arms, great pecs, but lower body's not that great, right? So you see these muscular imbalances. So lagging muscle groups can definitely be a problem. And it's not necessarily because someone is not training them hard enough or more frequently enough. It just comes down to their genetics, right? So I use myself as an example for this. Genetically, I've always had pretty great legs. Like I was gifted with some pretty decent legs, and I didn't have to do much for my legs to respond. But genetically, I've always had a smaller back. And I know this because when I used to compete, judges would always tell me, your physique looks great, but your back needs work. So what I did was I gave myself 2 back days. One was a pull down day and one was a row day. And I still, every single exercise I did, I only did once a week, but my back responded from just adding in that second day, but of different movements, different planes of motion. So I wasn't going into the gym and doing deadlifts twice a week. I wasn't doing bent over rows twice a week. I wasn't doing lat pull downs twice a week. I was having one particular day where I was doing all my pull downs, wide grip lat pull downs, closed grip lat pull downs, reverse grip lat pull downs, box grip lat pull downs, pullovers. And another day where I was doing all my rows. So it was a seated V-bar row, T-bar rows, bent over barbell rows, one arm dumbbell rows. So I had a row day and a pull day. And that really worked for my back. So if you're someone, let's say you struggle with your lower body, well, I'm still going to tell you work each muscle group once a week. But the lower body has lots of muscles in it. So you could dedicate one entire day to your quads, where you're doing, let's say, barbell back squats, leg press, hack squats, leg extensions, lunges. And you could dedicate a second day to your hamstrings and glutes. So you could do lying hamstring curls, seated hamstring curls, straight leg dumbbell deadlifts. You could do hip thrusts for your glutes, right? You could do calf raises. And that way you're working 2 days of lower body, but different muscle groups in the lower body and different planes of motions. So when you have a lagging body part like that, that's my recommendation. You do give it a little bit more attention, but you still train each muscle group in that particular muscle group. So each muscle, I should say, in that muscle group once a week. Okay. And remember, there's over 126 muscles in the human body. So you have lots of exercises that you can do. Okay. You just have to make sure that you understand basic anatomy and physiology to put together a plan that works specifically for you. And again, if you're someone who's like, I don't know anything about anatomy or physiology and I don't know what I'm doing, hire a trainer, hire a coach, someone that can help you put together a plan that says, okay, yeah, you're right. You struggle in the lower body. So we're going to create 2 lower body days. But that doesn't mean we're going to be squatting twice a week. That doesn't mean that we're going to be doing hamstring curls twice a week or hip thrusts twice a week, because you're going to overtrain the muscle. And as I talked about in one of the earlier questions, if you overtrain the muscle, you risk injury again. Okay, you're going to tear something, you're going to break something, you're going to strain something. If you're injured, you can't train. So don't overtrain the muscle. It's not going to respond. Okay, if anything, it's going to go the opposite direction. So don't do that. Okay, so I understand that people think more is better, and I'm not disagreeing, but just make sure that more makes sense. And by that, I mean, make sure that you're hitting different planes of motion, different ranges of motion, different exercise selection, and make sure you're spacing out those days accordingly. Okay. And that's how you're going to get results with lagging muscle groups. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, November the 11th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, my in-house personal training business. I truly do appreciate all the support I receive on a continuous basis. Thank you all once again and have a fantastic day. Bye for now.